So the mainstream media blasting the president's decision to release the Republican FISA memo amid claims the FBI relied on news reports to obtain a warrant against an advisor to the Trump campaign. A former Justice Department prosecutor telling me Friday it sounds crazy.
I was a prosecutor for 27 years. I looked at numerous affidavits, reviewed them all the time. I can't remember one that relied on media reporting for any aspect of this. Relying on media seems crazy. The FBI has a lot of resources. They don't need to just read a newspaper and try to include that as a basis for probable cause. They can go out and investigate and interview the people themselves and have much more reliable information.
Howard Kurtz is the author of the new book, Media Madness. He's also the host of Media Buzz, and he joins us here in New York. And it's great to have you. Congratulations on the book.
Thank you so much.
Let me ask you about the coverage of a story like this and how different it is than it might have been even 20 years ago with all the different types of media that you can read. I mean, I have here something from the Daily Wire, something from Lawfare. I read all sorts of different pieces this weekend from lots of different places, and that just didn't exist even 15, 20 years ago.
When I was a newspaper reporter and you were at the Bush White House, looking back, it's almost like it was slow motion. We all worked hard.
Right.
But so the rise of technology, I think, has allowed for these giant megaphones. And so you had, I mean, there was so much pregame hype here for this Nunes memo. It was like the Super Bowl. And at the same time, once the memo came out, there was an awful lot of campaigning from the left, media figures trying to discredit it, trying to denigrate it, trying to say it wasn't important.
Before they even saw it.
Yeah, before saying it was irrelevant and all of that, and trying to shift the focus to the president versus the FBI and the DOJ rather than the contents of the memo itself. And so it's like there are these echo chambers that are competing at all times.
And yet the president tweeting Saturday morning that this basically vindicated his position, that there's no collusion and that this investigation is wrong. But here, listen to Trey Gowdy, who was on the Sunday shows.
To the extent the memo deals with the dossier and the FISA process, the dossier has nothing to do with the meeting at Trump Tower. The dossier has nothing to do with an email sent by Cambridge Analytica. The dossier really has nothing to do with George Papadopoulos' meeting in Great Britain. It also doesn't have anything to do with obstruction of justice. So there's going to be a Russia probe even without a dossier.
And that stuck out to me because it almost seemed like that was just a clarification and the bright line that Republican leaders were trying to talk about before the memo was released. But it does seem to get blurred when the president and his son and others are saying that this is what we've been saying all along, that there was bias against us and this is unfair.
Both things can be true. There obviously are people at the FBI who do not like Donald Trump during the campaign, don't like him now. There have been a lot of damaging leaks. And it doesn't completely invalidate the Mueller investigation. By the way, Mueller was a private citizen at the time that this whole FISA warrant thing was going on.
That's a good point. I hadn't brought that up. Listen, look at this. I read it this morning, and I just thought again saying how different it is in as you've covered media and been in the media. Politico writing about Russian bots and how they really helped fuel the Release the Memo hashtag, saying whether it is Republican or Russian or Macedonian teenagers, it doesn't really matter. It is computational propaganda, meaning artificially amplified and targeted for a specific purpose, and it dominated political discussions in the United States for days. So this isn't going to be the last time we see something like this. Is this a new way of basically geopolitical diplomacy/warfare through the media?
A new and very troubling way. Now, look, I don't have any problem with ordinary Trump supporters or Trump opponents using Twitter and hashtags and technology to mount grassroots campaigns. That's democracy. But when we have these shadowy bots, and Politico says a lot of these were linked to Russia, it shows you that the infiltration and distortion and propaganda that we're all concerned about in the 2016 campaign is still going on. And the fact that I think that Twitter and Facebook and other social media platforms need to do a better job of rooting out what are basically lying propaganda outfits. We don't even know who's behind them, and they clearly can push stories into the mainstream media.
I wanted to ask you something more broad. I have a theory of when I feel like I noticed that the media was biased. You know, I started out as a reporter before I went to Washington. Do you have a moment in time when you look back and you think you started to see things change?
Yeah, when Donald Trump came down the escalator. I mean, look, there's been liberal bias.
You don't think it was during the George W. Bush administration that there was bias against him?
Oh, sure. There was a standard kind of bias that conservatives have complained about for decades. It was against Ronald Reagan. It was against George W. Bush.
But exacerbated now. I would agree with that.
On Donald Trump, it's a whole different level for a couple of reasons. One is the president fights back. He has made the press a very big, fat target. And there is something that is more than ideological because, as you know, many prominent media conservatives oppose this president. It is sort of visceral and cultural. They just don't like the guy. They don't think he was going to be president. They don't think he should be president. At the the same time, they fall into the president's trap because the more they hit Donald Trump with endless waves of negativity, the more it alienates his supporters who already don't trust what they view as the elite media.
Right.
And so I just think it's on steroids now in a way that would have been hard for us to
do you
imagine.
see it changing at all anytime soon?
I would love to give you an optimistic answer on that.
Okay, we like optimism here on this show.
No, but unfortunately, I think the president is dug in against what he calls fake news, and the media are invested in the anti-Trump narrative, many of them, and it's making them lots of money. Everybody's ratings.
That's true. Everybody. Well, we love having you on, and we love talking about the media. It is Media Madness. That is the book.